Hello, Latin students. Welcome back to another episode of The Truman Show. Today, we're going to be going over the 5 declensions because it's time that you learned Eeyore declensions. Okay, let's get right to it. So, what we have here is all 5 of the declensions, but you'll notice there's more than 5 charts. So maybe you're wondering, hey, how come some declensions have gendered forms and other ones don't? Well, for that, why don't we ask my twin brother, Kizoa?
Well, why don't you ask a native Latin speaker? Oh wait, they're all dead.
And there you have it. I don't know why. Perhaps there's some, Western language specialist who could tell you the answer, but just know that you have to know all these. So why don't we go through them in order? We have first declension, second declension with 2 forms, masculine and neuter, third declension with 2 forms, masculine and feminine, and then neuter is a separate form. Why is it that masculine and feminine share a gender here? Again, don't know, couldn't tell you. Moving on, we have fourth declension and fifth declension. So before we go through some general rules, tips, tricks to help you remember, why don't we just chant through each of these declensions?
Chanting stuff. This is called the I didn't feel like writing it out, so I'm going to use this fancy computer technology stuff instead. So why don't we just chant right through this? We have yeah, I'm not going to underline each one because that's too much clicking. I'll do it anyways. Arum, is, as, is. So there you have it. The endings are already in a different color. This sheet, this declension sheet can be found online. I'll post a link in the description, but you should have a copy in your books, lesson 29, I think. Something like that. Anyways, this is first declension. Moving on. Second declension masculine. We have us, e, o, o, e, orum, is, os, is. Next. This is second declension neuter. We have e, o, o, orum, is, is. So do remember that there are 2 forms of the second declension, and they have pretty significant differences. Next. This is the third declension for masculine and feminine nouns. So this doesn't have a specific ending, so we'll just go blank, is, e, aim, a, ace, ibus, ace, ibus. Next. This is the third declension neuter. Blank, is, e, blank again, a, ibus, ibus. Whoops. Now before we move on to the fourth declension and the fifth declension, something I want you to keep in mind is that the way I'm pronouncing these is not necessarily reflective of the way they're spelled. So if it's easier for you to say a instead of to remember that it's just the letter a, go ahead and do that. But these are pronunciations that I was taught. I don't know if they're strictly correct or not, but let's move on regardless. Fourth declension. Us, ui, u, us, ibus, us, ibus. Yes, this is pronounced Kind of funky, right? And finally, fifth declension. Ace, ae, m, a, ace, arum, abus, ace, abus. Okay, now we've chanted through them all, and I'll go over some general rules and tricks that can help you remember some of these endings. But I would generally recommend just knowing the chant. Really interesting and pretty helpful as well about the declensions is whenever there's a chant that has the neuter gender associated with it. For example, now we're looking at second declension neuter. A rule with neuter genders, well, their chant that is that the hold on, give me a sec, I gotta change it to a brush. The nominative and the accusative endings are always the same. So here we have here we have and why don't we take a look at another example. Now we're looking at the third declension neuter chant. As you can see, the blank here appears in the accusative. Again, nominative, accusative. This appears here as well. I actually don't know if there's little boxes in the way or not. Yeah, this appears both times. And just another heads up about this chart. You'll see stuff on here like I stem and another chant that you haven't learned yet. Don't worry about it. Latin's very complicated and you don't need to know all of it. Just what your book says you need to know and what's going to be on that test, right? I mean, let's be real. You're not gonna go up to Super Mario or something and start speaking Latin at him, right? That'd be rude. But my Latin teacher did once tell me if you speak Latin at Italians fast enough, they can probably understand a little bit. Yeah. So if you ever go to Rome, do that to the locals. They'll really appreciate it, trust me. I'm just kidding. Don't actually do that. That would be like if someone came up to you and was like, "Hey, y'all, I like beans and grits," you know, something like that, and they take that as English. I don't know where I'm going with this. In fact, I might just cut this part out entirely. Oh, that's my desktop. You didn't need to see that. This is a train wreck. Neat doodle daddle that you can do doodle daddle do is, notice in the let me scroll up a bit. The dative and ablative plural, the endings are always the same. So here we have is, scroll down, is in the masculine, scroll over, is in the second neuter, ibus in the third masculine / feminine, and again ibus in the third neuter. Let's go over to fourth declension, ibus again, and in the fifth declension, abus. So if you can't remember one or the other, just know that they're the same, essentially. And one last little tidbit I do want to impart to you is that some declensions have what I like to call a characteristic vowel, in the sense that this vowel appears in all or almost all of the endings. For example, we're looking at the first declension here. First declension's characteristic vowel is A, the letter A. A appears in all but 2 of the endings, so A will be in 80% of the endings. Oh, not that one. So if you're ever wondering like, this word, what declension is it again? Or rather, you know the endings, but you forget what declension is associated with, it's A. Now, first declension, granted, is the first declension you learned. Wow. But this is more geared towards fourth and fifth, which are more recent and can be easily mixed up. So let's take a look at those. If I showed you this, you might not think right away, this is fourth declension. You might think, this is fourth or fifth. I can't quite remember which one. Well, this is fourth declension, and the characteristic vowel of fourth declension is U. Guessed it. Yeah, it's U. That looks like a V. But, fun fact. Romans treated V's the same as U's. In fact, let me give you a little sneak peek of that. What you are seeing right now is the inscription of the Arch of Titus. You'll see some familiar phrases here. You have Senatus Populusque Romanus, which, the Senate and the people of Rome. And it talks about Titus and Vespasian. But look, the V in Senate, Senatus, is the same as the U. Populusque, 2 V's instead of 2 U's. Romanus, again, V's instead of U's. Augusto, V's instead of U's. But V's also served as V's. For example, you can see here, Vespasian. Vespasian was the emperor's name. It wasn't Vespasian. They treated V's the same as U's, even though V could have 2 separate sounds. So it's not like the I and J thing, where J's didn't exist and the only sound you could make was I. I could be used as the I sound or as a J functionally, and V's could be used as U's or V's. So, I and V are both letters that in Latin can be vowels or consonants. V being the vowel U, the consonant V, I being the vowel I, and the consonant J. So fun fact about that. Okay, so that was just a little blurb. Keep in mind, again, all but 2 endings of this declension, fourth declension, have U in them. Keep that in mind. Finally, fifth. Fifth declension, the characteristic vowel is E. Every single gosh darn diddly dang Peter Piper pickled pekka endings has E in it. So fifth is E, fourth is U, first is A. As for second and third, those are trickier, not only because they have a wide variety of vowels in each of the endings, but also because second and third declension have different gendered chants. So not quite uniform in that regard, but this is a good little trick to help you out.
You know, declensions are very important, and sometimes, you know, you might hear, oh, memorize the declensions of the nouns, and it's not something you should so much as memorize as be able to figure out. If you know the tells to some nouns and their endings, then you can figure out their declension. It's a lot easier than using up brain space to memorize it strictly. So I have two words here, deus and manus. Now if we look at the endings, there's us and us. So you might think, oh, these are both second declension masculine, right? Wrong. If you look at these two words as they are, they're missing something, right? You would not be given this on a test if you were, doing vocab and whatnot. You would be given the dictionary form. So the dictionary form of deus would be deus, comma, I, masculine, right? So suddenly you have not just the us ending, but you have this as well, the genitive singular. Memorize the genitive singular. It's very important. Whenever you're memorizing vocab, if you don't remember the genitive singular, for nouns anyways, is bad news bears, right? You're not going to be able to figure out the declension, because if you look here, the dictionary form of manus is manus, us. Whoa! Suddenly, there's two uses. Now you can tell that, oh, these aren't the same declensions because this has a us in the genitive singular, meaning that this is second masculine and this is fourth. Make sense? Okay, that's just one example of why you should memorize the entire dictionary form of the word. That's a good question, Aflac Duck. So what about the third declension? It's the trickiest one. There's all sorts of weird endings. In fact, if you look at the chart, for the singular, wait a second, there's not even an ending there. It's a blank, a ruse, a gag, a goof, a variable. This ending does not exist. Well, not uniformly anyways. Of course, every word has an ending. Otherwise, it would be a word, because, if you had a word of 0 letters, then it doesn't exist, right? Moving on. How do you tell if a word is in the third declension or not? Well, there are a few tricks that can help you sort this thing out. So I have a few examples of third declension words up here. Let's take a look. Rex, regis, lux, lucus, flumen, fluminis, canis, canis, and cor, cordis. Now, going back to that thing I said earlier about you have to memorize the genitive singular. Look, this. If you go through every single declension chart, the genitive singular is as follows. Boom, boom, boom. This is third. Then for fourth we have us, and for fifth we have AE. So this is masculine. This is neutered for second, this is first, this is third, this is fourth, and fifth. So if you just have the dictionary form, you should be able to easily tell if a word is third declension or not. You should be able to tell any declension of a word if you have the dictionary form, because they give you the first two endings, and that's all you need to differentiate the declensions from each other. Also, a little hint, if there's an X, it's third declension. What chant starts with X? None of them. So you can think of this as like, X, little variable, little algebra, yeah, little X, yeah. Then you have weird words like this, flumen. Well, what the heck is flumen? Well, how many chants start with N as their first ending? None of them. Also, this is a giveaway. So no excuse, No excuse. Canis, canis. Oh, it's got the same first and second. Well, what matters is the second. These do not depend on each other ever in the third declension, because the third declension, the ending could be anything. It could be an R, for crying out loud. Cor cordis. Again, this is. And something else that you should note about third declension nouns is they're the only nouns that radically change, or can radically change, from the nominative singular to the genitive singular. Look, rex, regis, where'd that G come from? Cor cordis, where did this D come from? Whereas if you took something like a first declension word, poeta, poet, I, exact same stem. For third declension, you get the stem from the genitive singular. You should be doing this for all the declensions anyways, but it matters way more for third declension because this could be nothing like this. All right? Now, I do want to point out some quick little exceptions for this so-called universal rule. There's two words in the second declension, puer and wir. They end in R. However, you decline them just the same as any second declension. Then it goes pueri, wiri, so on and so forth. So know these two exceptions. These are like some of the first words you ever taught though, so no excuse there. And those are some hints to help you with the third declension. Today's fun fizzly fact, we're going to talk about this word. Servus. Dictionary form. Servi, masculine. Know what this means? It means slave. So let's talk a bit about the slave class in Rome and how they acquired these members of society. Slaves were actually mostly prisoners of war, captured from other countries on conquests, and they worked in houses. Actually, something to note is a lot of works of art in Rome, most of them were done by the slave class. So unlike the Greeks, who valued their sculptors and painters very highly, we do not know the names of any Roman painters or sculptors or mosaic artists because they were in the slave class and were not given credit. Which is a shame because a lot of Roman art's really good. Moving on, slaves could be freed by the patrician of the house if they so chose, and could then be actually given Roman citizen status, which wasn't that big of a deal because Rome was a huge empire. But in the event that a slave would run away, not good, not good. Why don't we go to my twin brother Kazoa for a little bit about that. Messenger slave boy, take this scroll to Gaius Caecilius Maximus Quintus.
Yes, sir.
Slave boy, you thought you could get away? Yeah, that's what happens when you betray the house of William Faulkner's. Yeah, he learned his lesson. For that colorful historical reenactment, Kazoa. Did you get it?